So, the title of my talk today is How Big is Big? And I want you to really ask yourself that. I love this picture. Um, I think our minds can sometimes be that bottle. It's a picture of a ship in a bottle. I'm saying that for those of you who are hearing this on the podcast. I realized the other day I was listening to something and on one of the talks, and I was like, I have no idea what I was looking at that moment. So it's a ship in a bottle on an ocean. So I think our minds can sometimes be that bottle and take the bigness of something and pull it in and turn it small. So the question I have for you today is, how big is big? Do you ever feel like your life could be bigger? Do you ever feel that your life is actually much bigger than you're living it? Do you ever feel sometimes that your reach just isn't far enough? That you're stuck in this body and you can only reach that far because you don't realize that it's not your body that's doing the reaching, it's your mind. Do you ever feel that there's a ceiling on your life, that there's a limited ceiling? You know? What puts that ceiling there? So if you've answered yes to any of these questions, then you're like me and like most of us, where we think there's more. There's always going to be more. How many people feel that there's always going to be more for you in your life? There has to be. We are the living embodiment of the divine creative energy that is always expanding, always moving, always creating something new in every given moment. So there's got to always be more. Now, I want to be clear. When I say, how many of you feel that your life isn't big enough? I'm actually not talking about big in terms of some monumental thing that you could accomplish. That's not what I'm talking about. Because I remember somebody asking this question in a group and saying, don't you feel like you could want more? Don't you want more? Your life isn't big enough? And someone was like, I feel my life is perfect. I feel like I'm being told I should do more than what I do. This person happened to be someone in sanitation who was a collector, trash collector. And the conversation went on, and this person was saying, I always feel like people think what I've chosen to do with my life is just not big enough. I should have a bigger dream. It's not that. It's not what you do, it's who you are. That's all I'm talking about. Are you big enough? Are you big enough to really encompass who you are? Are you living your life from the bigness of who you are? Because we can always be bigger. We can always have bigger dreams, even. But that's because we suddenly know who we are. So Ernest Holmes said this: as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. Let me read it again. As high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. So Ernest Holmes is saying, as high as you choose to lift your mind, that's as high as your life is going to show up to be. Got it? So, as high as you decide to think, at whatever level of consciousness you choose to live at, that's how your life's going to unfold. So, big basically is just whatever you decide big is. So, it's how big is your big? What are your parameters for who you can be in this world? Every single one of us sits here today as the person we are, having done the things we've done. I loved what Heather said about looking back and thinking, oh my God, I'm so ashamed of that person. But I love that Heather then brought it back to there is nothing to be ashamed of. Because whoever you were when you did that thing, I mean, I have things that I could say I'm ashamed of if I think really hard. But I have grown to understand and know I'm not ashamed of any of it. How many of you know that I was a Chippendales dancer? I was a Chippendales dancer in the 1980s. Yep. Who's saying no? And I wasn't much buffer than I am now. A little bit. But yes, I was a Chippendales dancer. Any of you that saw Sissy Boy, my one-man show, you will know that. I even go into it in the show. I show how the pants came off. They're all, one pull and they're gone. But I'm still wearing something, to be clear. It was the 1980s. It was still a very legitimate career. I'm not ashamed of being a Chippendales dancer. I really am not. I wish I had pictures from back then. I'd like to say, look at this, right? So we have to stop being ashamed of anything in our lives, because to the degree that we're ashamed, to that degree, we have just chipped away at our bigness. We've just allowed ourselves to see ourselves as less. So anything is possible. Heather's song. I want to read you the definition of possible. Able to be done within the power or capacity of someone. So it's possible when it's able to be done within the power or capacity of someone. So, what's your capacity for greatness? We say it every Sunday, greatness on demand. That's what God is, right? So what is your capacity for greatness? And what that means is, I love the Buddhist that was speaking yesterday, the Buddhist teacher. She said, we have to be very careful with what we consume, because our capacity for consuming things that don't help us is enormous. And she talked about the news. Well, I don't happen to agree with that thing that we shouldn't watch the news. I think we shouldn't watch the news if it disturbs us. And then we have to figure out why it disturbs us, get rid of the disturbance, and go back to watching the news so that we can be a part of this world. I don't believe that we should be these spiritual people that are not a part of the world. No, you live in the world. This is the world. God is the world. God is even the news. Our job is to see the news and come from love so that we understand it, and so that we can pour love on whatever needs love poured upon. Now, if you don't watch the news because it's just not good for you, I honor and respect that, because I do get it. What are we consuming? What is your capacity for greatness? How much greatness are you willing to take in? How much of who you are you really willing to take in? If there are things going on in your life that you don't like, maybe there's a health situation, maybe there's a career situation, maybe there's a money situation, maybe there's a love situation. There are so many situations. All God's children have situations. And the answer is, what do you do with it? What's your capacity to take on whatever comes your way and do something about it? And the real thing is, what's your capacity for your bigness? What is your capacity for how powerful you are? Because that's the quote. Able to be done with the power or capacity of someone. Perhaps what you're trying to accomplish, you don't think you're big enough for it. Or you somehow don't think you have the power to make this happen. I've seen people who try so hard to bring so many different people into something they want to do, and really it's theirs to do. So what is going on in your life right now that you are literally chomping at the bit to make happen? Make happen. I loved the Hindu teacher yesterday who was talking about the mind, the heart, and the action. And he talked about the limbs being the action. We all think of the mind too much. And if you notice, Ernest Holmes' quote says the science of mind and spirit. It's love and law, not just law. We have to stop being so mental. In fact, my goal is to take all this stuff up here and drop it down to here so that I'm feeling it, not just thinking about it. Because your thinking about it does nothing but give you a headache. Anybody find that? How many of you have thought something to death? Right, and those of you who aren't raising your hands, I know you have. We think things to death. And in this teaching, we somehow have come to the understanding that thinking is what's going to get us out of it. Thinking got us into it. And the same mind that gets us into it is not going to get us out of it. Our job is to take that conscious mind, to take that creative thinking, drop it down into the heart, feel what's there to feel from a benevolent, loving energy that is right there, accessible, and then act upon it. Take action. So anything is possible. So last night, yesterday was my 28th wedding anniversary, and we wanted to do something simple but fun. Simple but fun. So we weren't going to go out partying or dancing, or we don't really drink. So but what did we do? We went to ArcLight to see Downton Abbey, because we figured this would really be a great honoring of our marriage, which is similar to Downton Abbey. In fact, last night, as we crawled into bed, Kevin said something about something that had to be done in the house, and I said, I'll tell Carson in the morning to take care of it. For those of you who don't know who Carson is, he's the guy that takes care of everything at Downton Abbey. So, and he just left, and we both left because we went, there is no Carson. So let's go back to what is it we're needing to do tomorrow? But I loved, we absolutely, the minute, I don't know how many of you have seen it yet. So then you will know. And then there's no spoiler alerts here. But the minute the music came on, it was like we came home. It was like, and then because it's a movie, and this is what I loved, because it's a movie, they could use all of those drones to give us, who knew Downton Abbey was so big? But now you see it from every angle, and it was just spectacular. And I thought to myself, I think sometimes we're living our lives like a TV series as opposed to an epic motion picture. And we're only seeing our life from the small little myopic place where we reside, as opposed to rising above it all and seeing it from the landscape of everything. I am not just this little individualized expression of God. I am the divine energy knowing itself through me and as me, but that which is all is what I am. Now here's the thing about that. So are you, because there is only one. And the Catholics teach it, and the Jews teach it, and the Buddhists teach it. There is one God, one amazing, infinite, divine energy. And with that, and I was one of the last speakers yesterday, so I got to say, if there's only one, I guess we're it. And we are it. So I don't have to see myself as the TV series. I get to see myself as the enormous, multi-picture screen of my life. In surround, by the way. I mean, that's who we get to be. But I do think sometimes we see ourselves too small. And the movie was 2 hours about? 2 hours, and we both said, oh my God, I could sit here for another 2 hours. It was just so beautiful. Now, here are people with their problems, with their issues, in a grand time. And I get it. Sometimes when we watch Downton Abbey, it's like, could you picture yourself? We said, I said, could you picture having a house that big? Or I think Kevin asked me that, and I said, yes. I said I could. Because if I had a house that big, I would have a Carson. I would have people taking care of that house. My only job would be to enjoy the house and therefore help people help me. Does anything sound wrong with this? No. So why do we not have Downton Abbey? Why aren't we all living in these mega mansions with, by the way, Downton Abbey has an enormous community that grew up around them, right? For those of you that know Downton Abbey. And if you don't, you're like, please move on to the next part. So Downton Abbey has a whole community. And I can't go into the story because then I will do some spoiler alerts. So for me, what I really got as I sat there watching this, I was like, how big is big? Is that big? Is Downton Abbey big? Because I love the fact that there were people that came to Downton Abbey during this particular episode who it was a small place to visit for them. So they had a much bigger concept of big, which is why they are who they are. And Downton Abbey is who they are. And the person living in the stables is who he or she is. Now, here's the deal. None of it's small. Even the person living in the stable can have the biggest life imaginable if living in that stable is the most beautiful, wonderful thing, and that is how they live their life, and they love doing what they're doing. They have a big life. A big life. So the question is, where are you in this concept of how big is big? Are you in the right space with the right people doing the right things? Is it big enough for you? Because if it is, then you must be completely, joyously happy. That's the bigness I'm talking about. I don't need Downton Abbey to be happy. I just want it. I said that to Kevin. I said, I know we love our house, and we just spend so much time and money on it, turning it into this beautiful house. And those of you that are coming to Brats and Beer today, you will see our house. I know I love our house. But I thought about it, and they were having a dinner in Downton Abbey last night, and I thought, That room they're having dinner in is bigger than my whole house. How do I feel about that? And I thought, you know what? I like our house. I probably don't ever want our house to not be our house while we're here in this lifetime. But I'd certainly love a house on the cliffs of Malibu or something, overlooking the ocean. Maybe not the cliffs of Malibu. Maybe down on the ground somewhere where it's just expansive. And why not? Am I big enough for that? The answer is yes. Do I have what it takes to create whatever I want? The answer is yes. Do you have what it takes to create whatever you want? The answer is yes, to the degree that you are conscious of it. So, when I asked myself, can I see myself in this picture? I have this Ernest Holmes quote. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. So there's the point. I can take everything I see and make it mine. I can see myself living there to the degree that I can understand it, which really means embody it. I can see myself living there in my dreams, but can I actually embody it enough to actually create it in the experience of my life? Different thing. I know we're great at dreaming. I know we're great at imagining. I've given so many Oscar and Tony winning speeches. I've written 100 of them. I can totally dream about that. But can I embody it enough to get up on that stage and actually take that award and give a speech thanking you all? Of course. The answer is yes, and I plan on doing that at some point in my life. Not because I want to win. Well, I do want to win. But not because I think winning something proves something. It's because I want to do the work in the world that gets there. I want to write something so phenomenal on Broadway that they can't help but give me a Tony Award. And it won't be about the Tony Award. It'll be about the piece that's moving people all over the world. I'm that big. I believe I'm that big. And I think I didn't believe I was that big, even though I kept saying it. I loved what you said there. When we thought we had it all, oh my God, I thought I had it all. When I was starring on Broadway, oh my God, I had it all. I look back, oh my God, I didn't. I really didn't. I was so insecure, so unsure of who I was, so worried that it wasn't going to continue. Now, I'm not that person. None of us are. We've all come into this teaching. We understand, as Ernest Holmes says. We understand it now. And if you understand it, you must be able to take that understanding and move it out in action. So, Ernest Holmes said this: the realization that good is universal, and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate into his or her life is there to be used, that's what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. So, what do I understand? I understand that there is a power for good in the universe. It is greater than this individual person that I am, but it is what I am. So it might be greater than me, but it is what I am, and it is mine to use. All of it is mine to use. Does that add up to I am God? It does for me, but not if it's misunderstood. Saying I am God, I am bigger than anyone. That's not I am God. That's I don't know who I am. So there's a power for good in the universe, bigger than I am and yet who I am, and it is mine to use. That's what I understand. I understand that clearly. And what he says is, that is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. And I'm going to close my talk today on spirit, because the science of mind is the only thing we ever say. For years and years, that's all people are talking about in this movement, the science of mind. Well, that's like saying, I'm going to see The Sound of. I'll wait till you all get it. The musical is The Sound of Music. So if I'm going to see The Sound of, I've missed the entire point of why I'm going. So if I'm just saying the science of mind, I've missed the entire point of this teaching. Because this teaching is not about using your mind to create your experience. It is not. It is using your mind to understand who you are, then dropping thyself into the spiritual nature of truth of who you are. And then once you arrive, have at it. That's what this teaching is about. That's what we understand. So I would like to take this understanding of new beginnings for the next couple of weeks and start to feel it more. I'm going to invite you, actually, I'm going to challenge you to feel more in your life. Heather said something to me. She said, grief is, what was that word? No, but grief is paralyzing. That's what you said. She said, grief is paralyzing by design. We were in the room talking just now. And when she said that, I went, it is. Grief is paralyzing. I'm paralyzed often throughout the week. By design. Why by design? Which was the brilliant part. By design, because the very essence of paralyzing means you have to stop and feel it. It paralyzes you. You must feel. Feel what it is that's going on. I think we take way too many spiritual bypasses in trying to find out who we are. It's time to not bypass what you are feeling. Feel what you feel. Be willing to feel what you feel. Allow what you're feeling to come through, even if it's painful, even if it's challenging, even if it's so joyful you feel you're going to burst. Feel it. You know, last week I said, what do you believe? What distracts you from what do you believe? They're very important things to know. What do I believe? What distracts me? So don't let yourself be distracted. Feel what you need to feel. When I have grief come up, I let myself feel it. Period. I will sit there until it runs its course so I can learn what I need to learn about it. So there's your challenge this week, to be willing to feel, to take this. How big is my big? Feel it first. Don't just think about it. Don't just dream it. Don't just look at it and hope that it could happen. No, feel it. What does it feel like? What do my desires feel like? And I guarantee you, if we spend more time feeling the truth of who we are, we're not going to have a problem with I am God, because we're going to get it so clearly, so emotionally, so spiritually, that it will just be like, duh, of course I am God. And so is every other person on this planet, because that's the design God made. God made itself brilliantly perfect as everyone and everything. We just need to get with the party and do what is ours to do. Namaste.